You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to the Rides Winning Insights, Horse and Rider's mini-sode series where we share audio lessons from Horse and Rider OnDemand trusted Western professionals. At Horse and Rider OnDemand, you can enjoy hundreds of how-to videos from disciplines like reining, ranch riding, reined cow horse, natural horsemanship, and more. Plus, you'll get insider access to clinic footage and step-by-step tutorials taught by top-level Western professionals. Head over to ondemand.horseandrider.com and use promo code THERIDE for 15% off our basic membership. That's ondemand.horseandrider.com and code THERIDE for 15% off.
In this episode, we hear from on-demand trainer Ryan Rushing about how to avoid burnout in your performance horses. Turnout time, knowing when to stop drilling, and doing things outside the arena can all benefit your horse and allow him to stay sharp and competitive. This week's episode is brought to you by El Lugar. Take your horse across the hanging bridge over a flowing river, and the adventure begins with the enchanting sounds of howling monkeys and colorful birds crossing the sky. Discover the enchanted horse ranch in Costa Rica, El Encanto, and El Lugar, the greatest beauty you will ever experience on horseback. Coming this fall. Go to www.elencanto.cr. That's www.elencanto.cr.
Wanted to talk briefly about something that I would say is near and dear to my heart. It's easy. These horses are athletes. So like any athlete, we can't keep them at the peak of their performance all the time. They'll get physically burned out and they'll get mentally burned out. So it's a little bit tougher on a 3-year-old because we're kind of building that whole year. Our big show is the NRHA Futurity at the end of the year in Oklahoma City. So the whole year is kind of ramping up to that. But even for a 3-year-old, I think they've got to have periods of peaks and then periods where they get to kind of let everything down and relax. So a couple of ways that I think about that. One, I try not to just keep the pressure on them all the time. In small ways, I would say that I think about doing that. Like we're fortunate enough here to have some land around here that we can ride on. So on Emma here, if I've got a long ride and she works hard for me, or say it's Friday and we're both tired and ready for the weekend and she's been working hard all week, at the end of my ride, I might just go out the gate and go ride out in the hayfield for 10 minutes. In the summer, we got alfalfa growing. I'll let her walk out and eat alfalfa and just decompress. And that seems like a small thing, but if you think about it, it's probably something that we would like to do. Of when we're working hard, stuff's hard, we need that time to just take a breath, decompress, and chill out a little bit. Horses need it too. So I would say that's a small way you can do it, is just walking them outside. Even if that's a trail ride 20 minutes down the road, or if that's just around your property or the facility where you're at, just being out of the arena, walking them around, let them eat a little bit of green grass, let them be a horse. I think another thing that's super important is time, if you're able to, of them to just be outside and not work. If you've got turnout, that's great. It's an opportunity for a horse to play, jump and buck and be a horse and not have to think about being so precise and tuned into everything that we're doing. So I think that play time and that goof off time is pretty important for them. So those are two small ways that I think about it, just on like a weekly basis, that we work into our routine of, okay, I've worked her hard. I might work on one thing and then I'm just going to take her on a trail ride. Who cares? It's not going to mess her up. She'll be better for it the next day. And then on a Saturday, I might just turn her out, let her decompress, let her be a horse. Another way that we think about it is, with a derby horse, for example, something that's a little bit older, they're a little bit more broke, they know the drill. So I'm gonna build things up to that horse show. I'm gonna plan it out a certain number of weeks out. Like, all right, I need to be working on these things, tuning on these things, working on this drill, all the way up until that horse show, because that horse show should be the peak of their performance. They need to be dialed, they need to be on point, ready to go, ready to fire at that horse show. But then after that horse show, I like to give them some time to just decompress. So it might be a week, for a really good Derby horse, it might be a couple of weeks of just, we're gonna go lope through the hayfield, we're gonna get turned out, we're gonna go, trail ride in the mountains, whatever it might be, for them to just decompress their body and decompress their mind. Because it is mental, but it's also physical. If you're an athlete, say you're training for a marathon and you're building up your mileage, and then you hit a point where you're peaking, if you overtrain, you're gonna get less out of what you're putting into it. So there's a fine line in there. It's the same thing with a horse. If they overtrain physically, they're not gonna be able to give you as much. So sometimes you've got to back off and let them recover physically and mentally a little bit. But for me, I think I get more out of them in the long run by doing that. And it's easy to put the pressure of it on ourselves. I've got the Futurity in a week and a half, and I know there's still a lot to prep for, but my horse knows her job. There's things I need to tune on, but I need her to be happy and confident when I go to that horse show. So if I push too hard, too soon, I'm gonna get less out of her than I would otherwise. But if I've got her relaxed, she's dialed, she's confident, but she can kind of decompress, those horses will stay better longer. And they're not gonna hate horse showing, they're not gonna hate going down the road and doing their jobs, because they know they don't work 7 days a week. I think just like us, for my job, as much as I love it, if I work 7 days a week, 365 days a year, eventually I'm gonna get burned out and get tired. I've got to take a break, decompress, and then I come back better and I do a better job on my horses because of it. It's the same way with horses. They don't need to work hard 7 days a week. They've got to decompress, and we got to keep in mind that they're a horse. And it's kind of fun for us. We've got, we're fortunate, we've got a couple of big state parks and national forests within a 15-minute drive. So my wife and I will take some of our horses out occasionally and just go ride. Just ride them through the mountains on trails. And it's always kind of a good reminder. We think of them as reiners all the time, but sometimes you forget that in the end they're just a horse, and they can go walk through a stream. I took my Derby horse fly fishing this summer, and that was pretty fun. So stuff like that, it just helps them decompress. It reminds us that they're just a horse in the end, and we need to treat them like that and take care of them like that.
This week's episode is brought to you by El Lugar. Go to www.elencanto.cr. That's www.elencanto.cr.
Thank you for tuning in to the Rides Winning Insights Minisode podcast. We hope you enjoyed this minisode. Please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow Horse and Rider on social media and at horseandrider.com to see all the cool things that we're up to. If you have any comments or questions, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@equinenetwork.com. We love to hear from you guys. And if you love what you're listening to, please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.